And we're back on the final run-in of our top 20 of your internet news stories of 2011. At number 6, this year we went to the polls, not once, but twice. First time round in the general election, many of the runners and riders jumped aboard the internet with wild abandon. The results, however, weren't always pretty.
Every TD, senator, candidate, councillor, half-bit politician went on Facebook and set up a profile in advance of the election.
The political parties had a very deliberate, organised, strategic use of social media.
It didn't stop you losing your seat now, Mark. It did not, no.
If you really love me, you'll vote Fine Gael.
One of the standout moments, unfortunately, was Fine Gael's website, particularly their Valentine campaign.
Labour are red, Fine Gael are blue. We won't increase your taxes like they want to do.
Who would I send that to? It would have to be someone I'm trying to break up with.
For the first time, candidates in this election can use social media websites to get their message across.
Ireland is more resistant to web politics than most countries because we expect a politician to knock on our door.
And even if you were to Skype every one of your voters, it's still not the same as knock knock.
My name is Dylan Haskins, and I'm standing as an independent in Dublin South East.
For a younger generation, their door is their computer, and the way to knock on the door was to communicate with them through the internet.
Dylan Haskins' campaign was probably the social media campaign. Dylan Haskins, who ran a superb internet campaign, but didn't get elected.
Phil Hogan to Enda. This is Phil to Enda's earpiece, okay? And
there were some general election moments that ended up on the internet that weren't necessarily passed by the party's press machine.
Phil, is it the 4-point plan, is it?
Enda Kenny apparently listening to Phil Hogan, his manager, in his earpiece while on the leaders' debate with Miriam O'Callaghan.
What should I say, Phil? Say anything.
Who's your sexy daddy?
No, not that.
And it went everywhere, and it was actually very, very funny. And I'm sure Enda Kenny himself got a laugh out of it.
Our figures were just enormous. We had 32 million page impressions for the duration of the campaign. The RTÉ correspondents were out in the field. They were tweeting back tallies, early tallies from each of the count centres.
One of the moments that I recall was Paul Gogarty, the Green Party TD, conceding defeat, that he'd lost his seat on Twitter.
That was a sign that, geez, you know, we got to keep an eye on the Twitter machine today because we're going to get information from it. Did social media win the election for Fine Gael? No, it didn't. Fianna Fáil's unpopularity won the election for Fine Gael.
If you're going down the tubes, you or your party, no matter how slick, savvy you are on the internet, won't save you.
We were a lost cause. It didn't matter if the Lord himself came through on your Facebook. You were a lost cause.
The internet was also the heart of another far more eventful regime change. And while our online interest may have peaked with the capture and killing of Muammar Gaddafi in October, clearly the Arab Spring is far from over.
There would have been no Arab Spring without a young man setting himself on fire in a market in Tunisia, in a town called Sidi Bouzid. But there would have been no Arab Spring if there hadn't been an entire social media community that got bigger and bigger.
It was one of Google's employees called Wael Ghonim who started the Facebook page in Egypt that a lot of the revolutionaries started to revolve around. And it was considered to be one of the triggers that got people out onto the streets.
In Syria, because foreign media were excluded, there wasn't and there still isn't any reliable source of information. The footage and the reports that were coming out from the protesters themselves were pretty well the really only source of news for people outside the country.
And what it lacked for in quality of footage, it made up for in the absolute power of information.
Incredible video showing the final seconds of a dictator's life.
Gaddafi's capture was probably one of the single biggest news stories online in 2011.
The Irish went and did a huge amount of searches for pictures of his death and pictures of his body.
So the footage you see is clearly taken on a mobile phone. You're looking at it going, is it him? Is it him?
We verified it. The multitude of sources allowed you to say patently this is Colonel Gaddafi.
All of the major news outlets used the video clips that were taken by these rebel fighters, and they didn't make for pleasant viewing.
Mainstream news knows that it just cannot compete with the immediacy of online life. So if they're going to show it, they have to up their game and decide, well, we have to show those images and that footage too.
We probably now go further than we would have a dozen years ago, because you're looking at the reality that this material is there.
What you want to do is satisfy people's curiosity without wandering into an area that is, you know, beyond the bounds of what would be regarded as being in good taste.
The revolution was to a certain extent televised, but I don't think it could have been televised without appearing on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media, on Skype, and all these other channels that people had open to them that possibly they hadn't had before.
This year, like a bore at a bad party, the recession simply refused to leave. No surprise then that online we searched for news of and insights into the ongoing economic crisis. The internet became a support group, rallying point and one-stop shop to try and find the truth behind the spin.
Official Ireland has been feeding us a diet of bullshit. First of all, we're going to have a soft landing. There was no question we weren't going to have a bailout. There was no sovereign going to default. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
This is the biggest political and economic crisis that Europe has faced since the Second World War.
Of all the areas where the internet has had greatest impact has been in relation to the analysis of the fiscal euro meltdown.
And what has been brilliant is that you're able to get an enormous variety and complexity of opinion as to what should be done, all brought together in one place.
In Athens, police clashed with protesters today during a massive demonstration against austerity policies.
This year, clearly, the euro crisis and the difficulties down in Greece have captured the imagination of people in Ireland.
We care about what happens in Italy and we care about what happens in Greece because their fate is tied to ours.
The roller coaster ride that is the financial markets continued today.
I don't think people understand the financial story, and I think that's why they want to see images of what's happening. They want to see unrest.
Even as the media focused on the violence in Athens, across the Atlantic, a largely peaceful, internet-driven protest movement was emerging away from the limelight.
I need a dollar, that's what I need. Hey, hey.
We saw a big spike. Everybody wanted to know what Occupy was all about. Where was it happening? What was going on? What was the meaning?
All of the Occupy campaigns have used the internet to mobilise crowds, to let people know where to go, where to meet, how they can help.
It's a very cheap and effective way of organising. So if you say 10 of us should get together here, rather than make 10 phone calls, you just Facebook people.
Like anyone with a shred of empathy, I remember March the 10th as one of the most horrific and heartbreaking days of the past year. Shared in real time from countless angles, we witnessed the fate of millions. It was the day that the power of social media came a distant second to the awesome and destructive power and might of Mother Nature.
Thousands of people are missing after yesterday's massive earthquake in Japan triggered a tsunami.
The Japanese earthquake happened. I, like many other people, just rushed online to see some of the images.
People were posting videos of themselves crouching in the street in Tokyo, and you could see these massive skyscrapers behind them wobbling like jelly.
Immediately before and after the earthquake, the volume of internet traffic into Japan and out of Japan mushroomed. The number of tweets, the number of images being sent, the number of emails, the number of instant messages, everything just went through the roof.
A lot of the stuff that came out on the internet was amateurs who were there on the spot. Is there anything more authentic than that?
And sometimes hearing their voices and their reaction, which is the other immediacy that you don't get with professionally shot material.
90,000 have been moved from areas near the Fukushima nuclear power plant north of Tokyo, where an explosion has led to a radiation leak.
All of a sudden, everybody around the world was trying to understand, well, what does it mean if a nuclear reactor starts to have a problem? What is a meltdown?
Selfishly, I suppose that would have been something that people would have been looking for, was, are we in danger?
9 months later, the internet is still a place we visit to remind ourselves of the terrible destruction unleashed that day.
One image stays with me still is that ferry stuck on a 2-storey building.
Forever we see that picture of the cars bobbing, they were driving and suddenly they were on an ocean.
You could look at it on a satellite image and see that, 10 acres or whatever it was of land completely flattened. So you had the before image and the after image. And you kind of went, I can't believe that.
8 months is an awfully long time in politics. The internet may have changed the atmosphere of February's general election, but in October's presidential election, it changed the outcome.
My name is Gay Mitchell and I'm seeking the office of President of Ireland.
The President plays an important role in Irish life, and choosing a President is a big decision.
From what we saw from the presidential election in 2011 is we now take social media for granted. We expect our candidates to have Facebook pages. We expected them to have Twitter accounts.
The presidential election was a kind of honeypot for internet frenzy.
Even if you weren't remotely interested in any of the candidates, you Googled for the scandals.
By the summertime, it was looking very like David Norris was going to actually win this hands down and nobody else was going to come close.
Senator David Norris has said he remains in the presidential election race despite details emerging of a letter he wrote to an Israeli court.
I was Googling, what are these letters? Who is this person? Why is this coming back out 20 years later?
They wanted more details because David sure as hell wasn't given the details.
But then, of course, the scandals continue. We've got Dana.
Hello and welcome to this.
It wasn't a particularly interesting debate, so I went off and did something else. And then I went onto my Twitter account and I saw this avalanche of stuff saying Dana's dropped a bombshell.
It has come to my attention that yet further allegations, this time of a most untrue and malicious, vile nature, have been levelled against a member of my family.
Nobody had a clue what she was talking about.
The internet went mad.
Get onto Google quick, find out, because somebody's going to have the information.
That night, however, the internet came up short. It wasn't until the next day it eventually delivered.
The details that she was referring to appeared on an American website. So that's how it actually got out there.
And once it's out, then it's out. There's no way you can keep it in.
But obviously the defining moment was the fact that he, who looked so socially media savvy, came a cropper by a tweet.
On the Monday before polling, Sean Gallagher is a mile ahead. The only thing that can change the inevitability of Sean Gallagher winning the presidential election is if there is an earthquake in his campaign.
On the Martin McGuinness for President Twitter account, Sinn Féin are saying they're going to produce the man who gave you the cheque for $5,000.
This tweet was saying, not only are you lying about this, but we're actually going to prove tomorrow.
Now, do you want to change what you said, or are you still saying that it just simply didn't happen?
You've been got by the Twitter. Do you want to admit it?
Well, I have no recollection of getting a cheque from this guy.
And it was really all about how Sean Gallagher responded to it.
If he gave me an envelope,
From then on, Gallagher's campaign is in free fall.
We say a week is a long time in politics. A tweet is a long time in politics.
The tweet had been sent out under the guise of coming from an official account. And this is the problem that traditional media now faces.
The question was put to Sean Gallagher in good faith, but I think, again, it raises questions about how we verify this kind of material.
And so you could say that that tweet, whoever it came from, that may indeed have been the biggest single factor in influencing the course of the outcome of the presidential election.
I am particularly grateful to the more than 1 million people who have said that I am acceptable to them as the 9th President of Ireland.
And so to the year's biggest online news story. It was, in fact, a double header and 2 more powerful heads you couldn't possibly wish for. Last May, Ireland rolled out the red carpet for a pair of high-profile foreign visits. One reforged an ancient ancestral link. The other repaired one. Together, both were undoubtedly the feel-good news story of the year. And online, you thought so too.
An awful lot of the people who were involved in the organisation and planning realised that the internet was where people were going to go to get information.
The Queen's visit particularly went from being like a traffic management story to being a historical milestone in the pace of 3 days on the internet.
You know the way we're brought up to think, oh, we hate the British, oh, we'll wham-bam them, oh, yes, we will.
Of course, she gets off the plane and what's she wearing? She was wearing a green outfit and straight, she had us then.
And there she was. And we fawned and we fell and we loved her.
People were Googling pictures of her outfit. It's like, do you know, it doesn't really matter what she does from here on in. We love her.
My name is Barack Obama of the Moneygall Obamas.
For most people, as is often the case with these kind of events, their access was through television. It was television that put all the cameras in place and put the material out on air.
But the web gives them a way of being the fifth person in the crowd at Ollie Hayes Pub. There were great historic moments that were captured that everyone was repeating over, you know, the next day after they happened.
In the words of the Taoiseach, it was a day many people thought would never happen.
If there was a particular thing on the TV which caught their fancy, they could then indulge that fancy by going on the internet and making sure they could view and review.
The Queen at the Garden of Remembrance has got to be a real iconic shot of that visit.
The Queen speaking a few Irish words.
Argus Acoida. Mary McAleese's reaction was fantastic. You could just see the look in her face. She kind of went, oh, wow.
The smiling Queen down at the English market in Cork. She seems very relaxed talking to the people.
But then, of course, you have the other moments that you just want to see again and again, even though they're probably not of great state significance.
Well, I think one of the seminal moments was the Beast, when the Beast got stuck on the ramp at the American Embassy in Dublin.
That was funny, wasn't it?
And what makes that so terrific is it's footage from the crowd across the road.
That was very good on the internet because it was played again and again.
That was a viral sensation. I mean, I know because all the international news agencies were asking us, could we get pictures of it?
After a whirlwind day of engagements, the United States President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle received a rapturous welcome in Dublin's College Green this evening.
It's Vader Ling. Yes, we can. It's looking like a beautiful day.
There was about 1.2 million page impressions on the day on the Obama stuff. Now, that was a concentrated visit. The Queen got 3 million over, you know, the week.
The number of searches for Visit Ireland went up tenfold for that month.
Certainly the official Irish websites are using the two visits to push Ireland and to say, look, if it's good enough for Barack Obama, it's good enough for Queen Elizabeth, you've got to come here.
A case like the visits by the Queen and by Obama, whether the picture originated from a live feed from RTE or it came from somebody watching with their phone in Ballsbridge in Dublin, it doesn't matter anymore. The internet is no longer something that your kids use. It's something that you use to get a ringside seat on history. And so the distinction between social media and traditional media, it's gone. We just, all of us haven't woken up to it yet.
So, there you have it. Our pick of the most interesting, engaging and entertaining 20 news stories searched, liked, retweeted, shared, browsed and commented upon by you in 2011. Now, our running order may not match yours. We may have left out stories that you feel should have been included. But you know what? This time next year, we'll all be having the exact same debate. Roll on 2012.
And don't miss Brian Dobson's RT News Review of the Year tomorrow at 6:30 here on One. On the way now, the story of Corkman and former Manchester United manager Frank O'Farrell and his time working in the shadow of Sir Matt Busby.